Hi folks, I'm Umesh Krishna, Head of Marketing at AOT Technologies. This series is a part of our effort to spark some engaging conversations in the domains of business process automation and software development. We have with us today, and it's a pleasure to host, Sandy Kemsley, who is a world-renowned expert and comes with over 3 decades of experience. And I will hand it over to Sandy for a detailed intro.
Thanks, Umesh. It's really great to be here. My work in the field of process automation and business automation in general comes from both sides. I do work with vendors, such as your own company and with many other vendors, looking as an analyst in the space, helping to understand how the technologies are being built, and in some cases, helping to provide input to how that is built. On the other side, I work as a consultant with many large organizations, often in the financial services and insurance space, helping them to select technologies, to decide how to use them, and any of the technical architecture or process automation related work that they do. So I have that ability to see both sides of what's going on in the industry, and in some cases act as a bit of a catalyst between the two sides.
Got it. When I interact with my clientele and potential customers, I often hear different interpretations or definitions of business process management. Could you define that terminology for me?
Sure. Business process management in the beginning was really about the systemization of operational processes, and that's still what it's about. Take a look at our operational processes and make them better in some way. Sometimes that's just looking at efficiency, changing how work goes through a department. Sometimes it's about introducing automation, but it's always about looking at those processes and how to make them better.
You spoke about automation while describing BPM. Business process management versus business process automation. Could you help me understand the difference between the two?
As we started to develop technology that could help to automate some of those processes, those systems became known as business process management systems, or BPMS, and those are often just called BPM. So the term BPM, some people will refer to it as just the management practice of how the work is improved, and some will refer to it as the technology that's used to automate that. BPA is more specifically around the automation technologies itself. So it's a less ambiguous term and seems to be either BPA or there's a few other terms. DPA is sometimes used as well for digital process automation.
Understood.
To make it very explicit that we're talking about the automation and the technology side of things, not just the management practice of improving processes.
When we deal with our clientele and potential clientele, in our consulting practice, we come across 2 distinct personas. There is one set who likes to follow the notations, the frameworks, follows the business process side of things in a way. And then there's, of course, the other persona who are more into their daily business operations, and are thinking more about their departmental use cases, right? So if an organization, let's say a technology or a business leader from an organization has to bring these 2 personas together for BPM, how can they do that effectively?
That's a great question, because you always have people who are looking at, they're not opposing views, but they're like orthogonal views. So the process experts, the people who are looking at how do we do process improvement, how do we bring in technology that's going to automate it, make things better, they're sort of thinking about how can we make this process more efficient? Let's look at this end-to-end process that we have and the whole process engineering side of things. They might be in an IT group, they might be in the business area, they might be in a center of excellence, it doesn't really matter. The business operations people, who are typically the subject matter experts in the business areas, they are concerned with getting their job done. They have to have these transactions processed before 4 o'clock today when the market closes, or they need to get this many claims processed per month. So for them, it's not as much a matter of how they're doing it, but what they're getting done, because their metrics are usually around accomplishing certain things. Now, obviously, you need to consider both of those when you're implementing these projects. You have to think about what is the best way to do it and how can we improve overall, but how can we make sure that we're still accomplishing the business goals? You also need to think beyond any one department's goals, because they might be optimizing for how they do their work locally, but not thinking about who has to handle things when it moves downstream in the process. So for example, an insurance claim, at some point there will be a payout, and so it goes to a different department usually for making the payments. If they're not thinking about how that information flows on to the next group, then you might find there's an additional amount of work that needs to be done. So you need those process engineering people to be looking at the end-to-end processes and seeing how information flows through the entire thing, and make sure that we're optimizing for that whole process and not just one given area. So this is a sort of a different view that the process experts will bring versus the business area experts. Now on top of that, you also have an executive or organizational level view of things, and this is where we move up into business architecture. This is the situation where the executives or shareholders are saying, well, we need to increase revenues, or we need to improve efficiency, or productivity, or we need to reduce headcount in some cases, or we need to be more innovative as a company. So they have very specific goals for the organization. So not only do these process level people and the businesses that are doing the activities along the way have to be looking at what's the most efficient way of doing that, but they also need to be feeding into, are we achieving those corporate goals? Are we helping to increase revenue or improve efficiency or improve innovation by the way that we're applying technology across the business organizations?
You briefly mentioned about Center of Excellence, right? That's something as a consulting firm we believe deeply in as well. What's the best way to put together the most effective COE team?
That's an interesting point, because I see so many organizations approach this in different ways. Very often a center of excellence will come with as a centered around a vendor product. So there will be a vendor product that goes in, usually one of these larger ones that's doing quite a bit of the automation, but maybe not all the automation. And there will be a center of excellence around how to use that product. That's only really one part of it. What you need to think about is a process automation or business automation center of excellence that covers off more of the areas, all of the technologies, but also things like process improvement. How are we doing process improvement? Are we doing Six Sigma or some other methodology for process improvement? And then you also need to bring in the business expertise. So not only are we doing the thing right, but are we doing the right thing? So are we achieving the business goals as well? So you want to be able to second people in from the business areas, have them come from the business area maybe for a 6 or 12 month secondment into the Center of Excellence, so that they can bring their knowledge about how business operations actually work. In very many cases, the people who are process experts don't necessarily know what it's like at the front lines to have to do these. And then what happens as these people work together is the Center of Excellence will be able to develop methods for moving this technology, this type of automation technology, out to different areas. They'll have templates or frameworks for how this gets spread out. They might have sample applications that match up with how the business is using the different technologies. So you really need to have both sides working together and bring in that business knowledge and not just the technical knowledge in the Center of Excellence.
Now, shifting focus a bit away from business and people and more towards the technology side of things. It gets complex. So when I think of technologies in this space, previously they used to brand themselves as business process automation software, or some focused on RPA or IDP. At the same time, there was this set of low-code application development platforms, and they used to do a bit of automation, right? And then there are, of course, iPaaS solutions. So many different variations, right? But recently, it seems like they're all trying to develop 360-degree capabilities, trying to do everything. I have even seen analysts coin terminologies like BOT, business automation, orchestration and automation technologies. As someone in the industry, would love to know your perspective on this approach.
Oh, absolutely. And as a technologist, I'm always happy to talk about the technology. The acronym, the BOT acronym is interesting. That comes from Gartner, of course, the Business Orchestration and Automation Technologies. And it really harkens back to some of their earlier definitions like an IBPMS, Intelligent Business Process Management System, or even business process management systems before that, which were defined as pushing towards monolithic solutions, where you would buy one platform from one vendor and it would have all the technology capabilities in it. It would not just be business process management, but so not just the workflow side of things, but also decision management. And it would have, nowadays it would have AI, and it would have intelligent document processing, and it would have robotic process automation for task automation. So all of these technologies became sort of bundled together into monolithic solutions. And that is where certainly a part of the market is going, but we also see a lot of specialist organizations that have a specific technology that they're really good at, and they want to stay as best of breed vendors in that area. So they will just do a process automation engine, or they will just do AI, or just do specific parts of it. Because when you look at the monolithic side, many of the vendors have come from being specialists in one area and then have added in other capabilities, either growing them themselves or bringing them in through acquisition or through partnerships, which means they're really good at some parts of the technology and they're not as good at other parts. So an organization that's using one of these monolithic platforms might not like the way they do one of the pieces and might want to be able to bring in some of the other technologies from the best of breed vendors.
Got it. So monolithic versus best of breed. Are there scenarios where it's apparent which one to pick?
Oh, absolutely. So this is kind of an interesting one, because we see a lot of it comes down to what are the software development skills within the target organization. So if you look at the small to medium-sized businesses where they're focused on getting their business done, their IT is good at keeping the lights on, bringing in new technology, but they're not software development shops, and they're not trying to be software development shops. In that case, a monolithic solution is often really good for them. They don't need to worry about how to integrate two different vendors' products together. They get one platform, they can use it to develop the user interface, to model the processes, do the decision management. Everything is handled end-to-end on a single platform. So that makes it faster and easier for them to build the solutions that they want. And in many cases, the technology that they're using is not a competitive differentiator for them. And that's one of the big things, is that they're just trying to process claims or whatever it is they're trying to do. They're not worried about being, we have to be the best innovator in this particular area. They're innovative in other areas of their business. Now, when we look at who's using best of breed, these fall into big categories, which are two categories, which is a little strange because it's either the really big companies or the really small companies. So the really big companies are the ones where they already have application development platforms that they're using for many other things in their organization. Think about a large financial services company. They've got many different areas. They're building their own user interfaces and portals and everything. They do not want a monolithic application development platform that dictates you have to use our portal to build your UI, and you have to use our process management and our AI and our decision management. They want to be able to pick bits and pieces, the best of breed from different vendors, and have that integrate into their own solution. Now, they run full software development shops. In fact, I think in many cases, they think that they're software development vendors. And so they're really bringing in those capabilities to do that because they need it for the flexibility, and in some cases, they need it for performance. Now, at the lower end, if you look at some of the smaller companies, these are the ones where they also have strong software development expertise, but they are picking best of breed because they want to be innovative. And this is the way that they are innovating on the technology platform itself. So they might be inventing a new way to do claims. I keep coming back to claims because I work a lot with insurance companies. But a couple of years ago, we started seeing companies, small companies, or spin-offs from maybe a larger insurance company, that were doing online claims processing that fully automated the process, so that you could go between making a claim and having the money in your bank account in under 20 minutes, which you can only do that with technology platforms. And you usually can't do that in the context of a normal claims management kind of scenario. So they were innovating how the business worked by being able to pick and choose, bringing in best of breed technologies and doing something that had a competitive differentiation at that point.
I want to go down this path a bit more, discussing a different set of technologies. So the enterprise suites from the likes of Salesforce or an SAP, right, may be originally meant to do a different set of business tasks, but of course, especially with the advent of AI, for instance, they seem to claim that they can cover a lot of process automation, right? At the same time, we also have the best of breed or the 360-degree platforms available, right? I would love to understand, how can an organization layer these two kind of technologies? Or is it about picking one of these to run with?
Well, yeah, I think your first point is right. It usually is a matter of layering them rather than picking one or the other. If a company is using Salesforce as their CRM, for example, or SAP as their ERP system, they're not going to replace that with a generic process automation platform. They have
Absolutely.
a lot of their core processes that are being run on that enterprise platform. The problem is that the processes within those platforms tend to be focused around a certain range of activities, and they don't cover a lot of things. So there's a lot of business processes that just aren't even in your Salesforce system or your SAP system. And those are the things that people are using spreadsheets and emails to get around all the things that aren't being done by those core systems. You'll also find that they don't have the flexibility and complexity in those processes. So being able to change a process and being able to handle event-driven processes and so on is very complex, or sometimes not even possible in those systems. So you need to have more complex process management capabilities, or you have things that fall outside of the footprint of those enterprise systems. This is where you need to look at integrating in a process management solution. Now, luckily, both Salesforce and SAP and a lot of these other systems have very robust APIs. So you can now have a process management system which is very good at calling APIs, get to a point in a process and call into your SAP system, find out some information about an order, and then go off and do something else that wouldn't normally be done within SAP, and then return the results back and load them back into SAP. So you can have the two systems work together to both do what they do best.
Within these process automation technologies, there are, of course, vertical solutions and then horizontal solutions. Horizontal ones cover all sort of sectors, industries, departments, and vertical ones, for instance, AOT has its own suite of products, right, which spans case management, forms management, and maybe there are solutions that are aimed at a specific department, right, for instance. How can an organization decide when to go horizontal versus when to go vertical?
That's a great question, because a horizontal platform will give you more flexibility in what you want to build, but it will take you much longer to get to your solution.
Got it.
If an organization can find, or a department can find, a vertical solution that meets their needs or meets most of their needs, that will often allow them to become up and running and productive much more quickly. This is also going to go back to the large company versus small company. What are the capabilities of the IT department? You may not have an IT group that has the time or skills to be able to build the vertical solution that you need in some cases. In other cases, it's just prohibitive because there are a lot of rules and regulatory compliance things that go in there. So for example, claims. If you look at claims management, there are specialized solutions for that, vertical solutions for that, because there are so many rules based on what jurisdiction you're in that have to be done. So there's things that you can and cannot say to the clients, there are things that have to be done within certain periods of time, and so on. And those rules need to be built into the system. And if you're not aware of those rules as a IT person building a solution, you might just think, oh, well, you need to serve up some documents and they're going to figure out whether to pay the claim or not. But it's not as simple as that. So you have to look at the benefits that a vertical solution can bring, but then also consider how flexible is that vertical solution, and is that going to meet our needs long term? In some cases, an organization will start with a vertical solution because it's easier to just grab something off the shelf and put it in, and then eventually they will create their own vertical solution that they build themselves based on a horizontal platform to fit in and integrate better with other things in their organization. So it might not be an either or, it could be where they are in their transition between different ways that they're doing things in their organization.
I still have 1,000 questions, but I think we should call it a wrap. So would love to know if you have any thoughts before we wrap up.
Well, the thing that strikes me is we've talked a lot about technology and we've talked about business, and I find that these can often be in organizations, they're not bringing these ideas together enough. And one of the things we talked about was in how do you get those different personas to talk to each other. And that's very essential to have both the technology side and the business side be represented in these discussions about how we're building these new technology solutions to help our business processes.
Thank you, Sandy. That was wonderful. In a short span of time, I think we managed to cover the business, the people, the technology aspects of this really nuanced space. So would love to have more conversations like this with you. Thanks for joining us today.
It was great to be here.
Please join in on the conversation through the comment section. You can also reach out to us through our website, linked in the description below.